Welcome to the Real Estate Women's Podcast. Thanks for pulling up a chair to our roundtable discussion. Here, we'll teach you how you can create a stream of passive income through multifamily investing, and we'll help you to shift your mindset so you can start living the life you really want to be living by design today.
Hey guys, we're the Real Estate Women. I'm Colleen.
I'm Tamara.
I'm Crystal.
And I'm Candy, and welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. So on today's episode, we are so honored to be talking about multifamily real estate. And not only are we talking about multifamily real estate, but we're talking about it with Rod Khleif. And the multifamily, when you think about real estate, it is so many sectors, and we focus in primarily on multifamily. And so we have brought in one of the experts on this field to talk to us as to why multifamily.
Now I'd like to introduce.
Was I supposed to respond there? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
There was a bit of a pause there. Go ahead, Tamara. You want to introduce Rod?
Well, you're welcome already. I'd like to tell a bit more about you, Rod. Rod Khleif is a multiple business owner and philanthropist. He is passionate about business, high performance, real estate, and giving back. He has also owned over 2,000 properties and is the host of the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world, Lifetime Cash Flow, through real estate investing, with over 12 million downloads to date. Rod has soared from humble beginnings to incredible success. His experience involves both remarkable triumphs and spectacular failures, which he likes to call seminars. Rod brings incredible authenticity and insight to his approach to real estate, mindset, success, and life. So, Rod, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, ladies. This is really exciting to see you all, and obviously know you all outside of this environment as well. So let me just give you a quick highlight of who I am and where I come from. So I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Netherlands, wooden shoes and windmills, and immigrated when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. Ended up in Denver, Colorado. Actually really struggled early on. I remember we ate expired food because that's all my mom could afford. We had shopped at, believe it or not, they had an expired food store. We drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, sounds better than it is. I remember wearing hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I finally got disgusted and lied about my age at Burger King because I was tall when I was 14 and got a job flipping burgers so I could buy my own clothes. And, I'm sure you've got listeners that had it harder than I did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she was actually a bit of an entrepreneur. She babysat kids for money. We always had a house full of kids. I mean, literally a ton of kids in the house. And she was real good at it, but she was also an entrepreneur, and she invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs. She also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house directly across the street from us. When I was 14, she bought for $30,000. Then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep on that house. It had gone up in value that much. And I was like, what? Screw college. I'm not doing college, Mom. I'm going to get into real estate. I was a capitalist. I wanted the money. I wanted the cool stuff. So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, and I was going to be rich in real estate. Well, my first year, and I was still living at home. My first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some pretty good money. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met somebody. I worked for him, actually. I was smart enough not to have my own company. I worked for another broker, and I was dating his daughter. And he taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff that we talk about, the passive investing, active investing, and so on and so forth. And so fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a freaking door. And I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God or the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million in 2008. And so, one of the big things I'm known for talking about is really the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And then, more importantly, or at least as importantly, the mindset it took to recover from that to the success that I'm blessed to have today. And and it ties right into the topic of the theme of today's podcast, which is why multifamily. So, happy to drill down on any of this stuff, the mindset stuff, the why multifamily. So, let me know which direction you want to take this, ladies.
Yeah, well, how did you get started in multifamily? When was that
Sure.
switch for you?
Sure. So I've owned 2,000 houses that I rented long term. It took me a long time to get the memo that I needed to quit screwing around with houses and buy multifamily. But I will tell you that I started, I bought plexes and things like that when I was in Denver, which is where I started. And, I bought a 10 unit, an 8 unit, smaller stuff in Denver. But then when I got to Florida, I actually bought some larger assets, and I had some apartment complexes here. And in 2008, I had 800 houses and I had several apartment complexes. Well, what I discovered when it all crashed, it was the houses that pulled me down. If I had not cross-collateralized my packages of houses with apartment complexes to save, 50 basis points or 0.5% interest, I'd still have those apartment complexes. The apartment rents pulled back about 11%, but they would have easily survived if I hadn't cross-collateralized them with debt back then. And so, what pulled me down was the houses. And a lot of people ask, were you over leveraged? Why did that happen? So let me give you a quick rundown on why that happened. I was actually only at a 30% loan to value. I only owed 30 cents on the dollar, and I still crashed and burned. And here's why. So my houses were 2 hours north of me, 2 hours south of me, and everywhere in between. And which logistically was a mistake. So that's number one. Number two is Florida has no state income tax. So property taxes here are proportionally higher, which impacts cash flow, right? The subtitle of my book, if one of you hold my book up for a second, you'll see the subtitle is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. You can't see it, but it's in there. Yeah, it is down at the bottom. The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. the new rules are focus on cash flow. So the other thing, which is kind of timely because I was literally on the roof earlier this morning helping tarp it, is if you're in a wind and a flood zone, you need higher insurance. And so, I pay about, close to $20,000 a year for insurance here at my place. And thank God, because I've got some significant damage from this recent Hurricane Ian. So of course, insurance costs impact cash flow, right? But what killed me was if I send a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. The plumbing parts, the appliance parts, the HVAC parts, the locks, the windows, so on and so forth. And we can stockpile parts. So I can send them and they're in and out in an hour. Well, if I had to send them to one of my houses that's an hour and a half or an hour one way, they have to go see what's wrong. Every house is different. And then they have to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. And that could be an hour round trip. And then, I don't know, when Rod tries to fix something, invariably he ends up going to Home Depot more than once, and that happens with maintenance. Well, so that maintenance killed us. And here's the thing: these were primarily C-class houses. There's A, B, C, and D class. A is brand new, D is the hood. You stay out of the hood. But those areas, they're just tough to manage. And ask me how I know. I've owned tons of stuff that was in areas I shouldn't have bought in. But these were C-class houses, so they're older, okay? So they're all automatically going to have more maintenance. And then that demographic that rents a C-class asset is tougher. They're tougher on an asset. So you can have a lot more maintenance. So the maintenance really killed me. But then kind of the coup de grace, the last straw, as it were, was I didn't pay attention to tenant demographics back then. If they had a good job, or they had good credit and they paid a deposit, I let them rent. Well, when I looked back on it, I discovered that most of my renters were either in retail or for the bulk of them were actually contractors, jobbers, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, which all fell off a cliff in 2008 and 9. They didn't have work. So that was kind of like the final straw. And here's what's crazy. Going in 2006, I owed 30 cents on the dollar. I actually went upside down by the end of 2009. It dropped more than 70%.
Wow.
And so, anyway, but again, had I not cross collateralized my multifamily, I'd still have it, which is why I started my podcast, 6.5 years ago, was to tell people, if you're going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, do multifamily for a lot of reasons. Okay. And, first of all is the one I just said, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that leads perfectly to kind of our next question. So some of the benefits of multifamily, of investing in the multifamily versus singles and all the other options, you really highlighted really well. Your story just shows, that multifamily proved to you
much
to
more
be that
resilient.
recession.
Yeah,
Yes,
much
it's
more
that-
resilient.
Yes.
And so, and we're heading for some economic pain in this country. Anyone tells you otherwise is naive. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, but with that comes incredible opportunity. There's going to be incredible opportunities to capitalize on stuff that's going on sale, multifamily. Now, why else do I love multifamily? I've actually debated this on podcasts where me and another multifamily guy are debating these single family flippers and wholesalers, and we kick their butts because this multifamily is just so much better. And here's why. First of all, it's probably the most resilient asset class. I actually thought we were going to have some problems in with COVID in 2020, and it was a blip. I will tell you, other asset classes like retail, shopping centers, office, industrial, they didn't get money from the government. Okay, we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental assistance through our tenants for our assets, our C assets, and even some of our B assets. And so, people need a place to live. And so these other asset classes, again, they're not as resilient. And I will say this, in the big crash of 2008 and 9, multifamily rents exceeded pre-crash levels in less than 3 years. Okay. So they bounced back that fast. And so,
well, that makes total sense because everyone lost their homes. So, they couldn't afford the house. So now they have to go and rent. So the demand
become a renter nation. Yeah, we've become a renter nation. We really have. And it become much, much harder to buy a home. Back then in 08 and 9, if you could fog a mirror, you could get a home loan. And that's why, all these subprime loans went belly up. And that's not the case any longer. It's much, much harder to get home financing. And with the pricing having gone up as much as it has, and now interest rates are insane. It's pretty much making almost the entire population be renters. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not either, And so, multifamily is very resilient. It's conservative. It's going to continue to increase. And there's a huge pent up demand for housing in general. Okay. I think we're like 2 million units short a year right now moving forward. And so if they can't buy, they have to rent. And so, the demand is definitely there. That said, there's still going to be a reckoning. There's going to be some opportunity for operators like ourselves to go out there and buy these assets. And so, but that's why multifamily, absolutely love multifamily. And that's why I started my podcast. In fact, when I first started my podcast, and we just broke 14 million downloads. And as you said, it's the largest. By the way, it's 14. You said 12.
14.
It's a little dated 14 now. And so, the reason I started it, like I said, was to share the message. If you're going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, do multifamily, don't do single family. In fact, I never planned to sell anything. And, I used to tell people, if you listen to early episodes, I say, I'll never sell you anything. Now I'm a freaking liar because I do boot camp. And as you guys know, I have a coaching program and everything else. But, I never planned to. And then, it just kind of took off. And I just loved it so much that I decided I wrote that book that you guys held up. I still give it away for free, pay the shipping, you have it for free. But I decided to go ahead and do some, coaching and courses. And, I had 850 people in Denver. I think several of you were there a few months ago. And I've got,
that's what brought us together.
That's right. Oh, no kidding. It was that event. No, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, so, we're all warriors. So it was, the Orlando boot camp?
December.
It was Orlando. Okay, so it was Orlando boot camp. Yeah, that was a good one too. So by the way, if you don't know what that means, I have a mentorship program. They're called My Warriors, and I will tell you, you guys may not even know this. We are upwards of 100,000 units owned in the Warrior program now. Wow. I mean, it's astounding, and I've only been teaching 5 years. I mean, besides my kids and my wife, I'm more proud of that than anything else. And you can see behind me here. Usually, I've got a green screen, so you can't see this, but you can see some of the hundreds of thank you cards from, that I've gotten from students over the years, these last 5 years. It's, really been something I'm very proud of. It's just, like I said, it's such a real treat to have you guys have me on your show here. It's a beautiful thing. Love seeing it. And I love the fact that you're here to help women and teach people how to passively invest because, I will tell you, a lot of people don't, they don't want to go and buy the property and deal with the tenants and deal with the management and the financing and raising the money and all that stuff. And so passive investing is a fantastic way for someone that's got some income, that's got some liquidity, that's afraid of the stock market, which I will tell you, you should be right now. But we won't even talk about crypto. I've seen people on TikTok literally bawling, losing millions of dollars on crypto. But the stock market's about to crush, and I'm going to tell you, it's already had the worst. It's like the worst it's been in I think a decade or no, I think 2 decades. I did a YouTube video on some headlines this last. I think it went live yesterday on this upcoming contraction that we're heading into, and so this passive investing in these secure multifamily investments is just such a much more safe, conservative, and lucrative. Frankly, the returns are still fantastic. And I know you guys are very, very conservative in your calculations. There've been a lot of aggressiveness lately, these last couple of years, but I know you guys are conservative because you're in my group. So, so I have a warrior, my warrior mentorship program. It's my coaching students, and, just really proud of what it's become. But anyway, if you've got some more questions about why multifamily, go there, or I could talk a little bit about mindset. I think that would be, because I will tell you.
I was just going to say, you just touched a little bit on the economy right now. So you think right now we're going into a good time to still buy multifamily?
Oh yeah, we're raising money for an incredible asset in Nashville right now. There are deals right now. I mean, we were able to do this thing at 60% loan to value, 10-year fixed rate debt, and still have upwards of 10% cash on cash, like upwards of 19% IRR, 22% annual adjusted return. And so, the deals are there, but I believe there are going to be a lot more deals like that coming. And so, that's
Rod, when you first started out, when you were talking about in your history, you were buying multifamily. Were those smaller units? Were you buying those yourself, or were you?
It was all myself up until I crashed in 2008. My brother was involved in some of them, but it was he and I in all of it. Yeah.
Did you find that doing that by yourself? Do you think that the single family helped you with the education that you needed to be able to handle the multifamily, or did you find that?
I had multifamily as well. Now, keep in mind that's the reason I started the podcast. Is my multifamily through that crash would have survived if it wasn't if I didn't have debt combined with packages of houses. So it was the houses pulled it all down. And so it was the cash flow. I just couldn't sustain the cash flow. I will tell you, it's much harder to cash flow single family than people think. Much harder. Okay. Multifamily cash flow is much better than single family. Honestly, even free and clear single family doesn't cash flow that fantastic, because there's so many little expenses that people think that they cash flow well, and they don't. Single family is great, in my opinion, for flipping and wholesaling. It's not the greatest long-term hold play. I've owned 2,000, so I've got a little credibility with this conversation.
Like you said, I think the larger multifamilies really helped you with the, like you said, like you mentioned, the different things, like with your multifamilies, everything's the same. That having the opportunity, the scalability, and have those economies of scale, you have so many in one place, just really helps so much. And then, of course, I'm sure you've seen with your multifamilies that the vacancy rate is something really important. Like, if you have one house that's empty, it's empty. If you have 100 units, 10's empty. Well, as long as you conservatively underwrote that, you're still cash flowing, right? And that's
And we're being very conservative right now. We stress test our deals. Like this Nashville asset, we could be, I think, 70 to 75% economically empty and still break even. That's awesome. And that's super important right now.
And just a quick, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just so our listeners know, what 75% economically vacant, what that actually means is, while there could be 100% occupied, but if you're 75% economically vacant, that means 75% of the tenants are not paying. So,
no, it's flipped. I'm really glad that you elaborate on it, but it means 25% of the tenants are not paying.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry. You said that backwards.
Thank you. And I'm so impressed that you stopped me on that, because that's really powerful to educate. I try to do that, and that's the only hate I get on. That's the only hate I get on my podcast. So I'll stop somebody and interrupt them to do what you just did, and people are like on.
No,
so I got 4.5 stars instead of 5 on iTunes.
No,
crazy.
Right, you are still a 5. Once you get on a roll, I think think it's one of those things, like, especially someone like you have so much knowledge and so much information that,
Yeah.
you have so much to talk about. And, just like you do on your podcast, you're the host, your job's there to think about your listeners and what can be helpful. And same thing, you do your thing and we're here to help our listeners out. So you're on a roll. You're still,
So just to
sorry.
be clear, so physically occupied is how many people are living there. Economically occupied is how many people are actually paying. Okay, and then sometimes there's a big disparity there, and that's a newbie mistake. Honestly, people don't pay attention to that if they really need to study that. But anything else on the economic or multifamily front? Otherwise, I'd love to elaborate a little bit on mindset, because I will tell you, I really believe that after the midterms, the news is probably going to get really ugly. Okay. Yeah. And here's why I believe that. There's a pretty big political influence on the media and social media right now. And I think if there's a political shift, I think you're going to see a lot more negative news. It's kind of been buried up to this point. You don't see it quite as much. Like, you guys may not know, there are 20 million families behind in the utility bills right now. 20 million families, and that was like buried in the news. And I know that there's a lot of foreclosures coming in the single family space, because I used to have a business that helped people in foreclosure that I sold. And I had lunch with the guy 2 weeks ago, and he says it's like a tsunami. They are coming. We are headed for some economic pain. With inflation and gas, it's insane. And this is another thing. I would be very careful right now with C- assets. I wouldn't probably do a C asset unless I can convert it to B through my CapEx work, okay, and have it in a B area, okay? So what we look for is, B and C assets in A and B areas. Like this Nashville asset I was just mentioning is an A area. It's a B asset. We're going to turn it into an A asset. So.
And that's another great benefit of multifamily, being able to force the appreciation.
Yeah.
You can actually, you can control the value of the property by what you do to it. If it starts as a C asset, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I'd love to give some examples of what you just said.
Yeah.
So,
you
can't force it.
Explain more about what the B and the C really are for our listeners that may not be familiar with that.
Yeah, so an A asset is the brand new stuff that you see on the side of the highway, sometimes in urban environments. A lot of them now are flat roofed, or urban for sure. And so that's the brand new stuff. It's got the amenities, the tech packages, the granite countertops and things like that. B is just a little older, maybe as much as 20, even sometimes 30 years older. C is going to be 30 to 50 years old. D is old, okay? And the problem with D is very often is it has what's called functional obsolescence, meaning, the rooms are smaller, the ceiling is low, the windows are small, things that are very expensive to fix, okay? There are A, B, and there's some subjectivity to this, of course, but there's A, B, C, and D areas as well. I mean, everybody knows where the D areas are, but the A areas, obviously, they've got the big national retail tenants, the Home Depots, the Starbucks, and all that stuff. Those are the A and B areas with the big national retailers that really do their demographical research. But back to your. Did that answer your question, Candy? Or I could.
Yes, it did.
All right.
Thank you.
Back to your comment about forcing appreciation.
Yeah.
Now, see, with houses and up to 4 units, duplex, fourplex, triplex, the value is always based on comparable sales, so comps. Right. And so you can't force appreciation like you can in multifamily. So in multifamily, the value is based on a multiple of the net income. It's called the net operating income, or NOI. And so how is that calculated? It's the gross income on the property less the property related expenses, not debt. That equals the net operating income. Okay. And so any increase to the net operating income is about $17 to $20 to $1 in increase. Okay. Let me give you an example. We have an asset in San Antonio. And we striped and numbered the parking spaces. It's a 296 unit asset. And we asked the tenants, hey, if you'd like your own parking space by your door, we'll reserve it for you. It's $25 a month. We had over 100 accept it. Okay. So we had 100 people paying an extra $25 a month. That was an $800,000 increase in value. I'm putting some numbers on the parking lot. Okay. I have another example. My manager there is a rock star, and she inspected all the units, for fire. She had to check the dates on the fire extinguishers. She went through every single one, and she discovered about 60 pets that we did not know about. Okay. And so these people have to pay $20 a month for their pet. Okay. And nobody's going to leave for $20 a month. That was a $600,000 increase in value. Oh, I'm sorry, it might have been 500. I might be exaggerating. Still, it was a lot of money. It was a big number.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. Yeah. For just so there's just so many ways to do that in this business, and you look for opportunities to ramp value. This Nashville asset I was just telling you about, they're primarily 3-bedroom units, but there were 24 of them that are 2 bedrooms, but they're the same size as the 3 bedrooms. They have like a study area where we can put a door and a wall up, and they're 3 bedrooms. And that's a $300 increase in value just for doing that, turning them into 3 bedrooms. And so, to give you an idea of what that little blip is, 300 times 24 times 12, and let's divide it by a 4 cap. That's a $2 million increase in value for putting some doors and some walls in. Okay.
Yep.
That's why we love this business, right, ladies?
Yeah.
Well, you know what the myth is too, that particularly with real estate, I've found is that when people talk about increasing rents and thinking about multifamily and adding value, we're providing a better living space, more services. It's not just the sake of raising rent in order to get a bottom line. It's about increasing the quality of life of the people and the community. And which is
no question. Like that asset in Nashville. I'll give you a perfect example. We have already closed. I'm doing some post-close raising. We have about $3 million left to raise. No big deal. I went to Europe for 3 weeks, and hurricane hit, and the excuses are like armpits. Everybody has them, and they stink. But that's my story. But anyway, but we had our first meeting yesterday, literally yesterday, and we've already got bids for a camera system, enhanced lighting, and to repair the gates there, to immediately increase the security. Okay. Yeah. And which is what people want. Those are families with kids. There's no playground there. And ththese are all 3-bedroom units with kids, and there's no place for them to play. Yeah. And so we're actually going to put at least 1, maybe 2 playgrounds in. I'm elaborating on what you just said, Candy. So we're going to make that a really nice place. We're going to put in a dog run. We're putting in a package locker because when we were there, the leasing office was dealing with a lot of packages. It's just a pain in the butt for them to take them and then call the tenant and all that stuff. So we're putting in a package locker. So we're really enhancing the quality there. So I just wanted to elaborate on what you just said, Candy, in that vein. Yeah. So it's not the greedy landlord. It's you go in there, you spend money, you make it nice. You also decrease expenses. See, it's any increase to the bottom line. So if you can decrease the expenses, that also does the same thing. So
high efficient toilets, high efficient bulbs, all of that stuff makes the big difference. And I think what you're saying, adding the parks and all of that, as being the one looking at the deals, that's half the fun, is like looking at something and like, okay, how can I creatively make this property bigger and better? Like, what can you do to add value, to add to the person's experience living there, to add all of that? So that's definitely it's a fun part, I think.
Right.
One of the other things that's really amazing is not only is it just in the community itself of the multifamily property that you might be increasing the value, but it also increases the value of the neighborhood, and you also get community programs can come in. There's so many other ways to bring about abundance and wealth, just not financially. And then having the investors be a part of that just by being a part of the investment is
sure. Yeah. I mean, like we're going to that asset next week, and we have several investors joining us just to kind of be involved in that changeover process. And I'm sure you guys do this as well. But I spend a lot of time educating our investors. By the way, do you mind if I mention my boot camps? Is that all right, guys?
Yeah.
Can I just bring that up? I mean, I know you guys have been to many.
Tell us a little bit about it, Rod.
Yeah. So I do boot camps regularly. I'm going to miss the one that's coming up this weekend because I know you guys are a little behind on like I am with posting episodes. But if I do 2 to 3 day boot camps. They're virtual and live. The next one likely will be virtual. And I don't sell anything at this events. It's just full on study about this business. And so what I would say to you, even for those of you that want to invest passively, why would you invest in something with your hard-earned money without some at least basic understanding of what you're doing? And so, I would encourage you to come to my boot camp. If you go to, if you just text Rod to 72345, that'll take you there. Or you can go to multifamilybootcamp.com. Another thing I'll mention is I've got a lot of free resources to learn more about this business at rodslinks.com, RODSLINKS, rodslinks.com. Typically, my bootcamp site will be there, the podcast, but a lot of free books are there as well. Additionally, if you come to my boot camp, I spend a lot of time on mindset because that really is 80 to 90% of this, why my students are so successful. I was mentioning to you guys before we started recording that the Warriors now own upwards of 100,000 units, which is just extraordinary to me. And I've only been teaching less than 5 years, so I'm really, really proud of that. But, the first thing we do there is a goal setting workshop, okay? Because how the heck do you get anything if you don't know what it is, okay? So, and in what's coming, I think there's going to be fear, okay? There's going to be fear because there's already fear with gas and inflation and threat of a war and all this crazy crap that's happening right now. It's so important to stay focused on what you want. Don't get caught up in the news. If you're listening or watching this, you're a leader. You wouldn't be here if you weren't a leader. And right now, more than ever, the world needs leaders. And so as a leader, it's very, very important that you pay attention to what you focus on. Okay. Like I said, minimize the crap on the news because it's whatever you focus on gets larger and it's just stressful. And in what's coming, with this pullback, like I said, there will be fear. And so it's just super important that you stay focused on what you want. That's why the goal setting is so powerful. Now, the reason I brought that up is in rodslinks.com. Even if you don't want to come to my boot camp, at the bottom is my goal setting workshop that I did on New Year's Day. I always do it and just give it away. And it's professionally done with a guide you can download. Here's the thing, ladies, and you know this, people spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. And this is designing your life. Yeah. So, if you're listening to this, go to Rod's Links, go to the bottom, do that goal setting workshop with your spouse, your kids, if they're over 10 years old, it's super,
my husband and
powerful.
I do it often. Every once in a while, we'll go back, go through it and, just reset our goals. It is really powerful.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention that, but anyway, if you'd like me to elaborate a little bit on some mindset related items, I could very briefly, if you want me to. I mean,
absolutely.
It starts with the goals. But
it's a big part of our podcast is mindset because you can educate yourself intellectually, but until you've got the mindset to implement, it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, that's it. People get hung up because of fear or limiting beliefs or they're comfortable. And comfort's a nice warm place and nothing grows there. Right. So, limiting beliefs. I'll talk about that for a moment. When I immigrated, I didn't speak English and I got thrown into school and I discovered bullies for the first time and got my butt kicked on occasion. And then my mom thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in wooden shoes and those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. So I got my butt kicked again. And then to add insult to injury, the bullies would chase me home sometimes. Some lived down at the end of my street. And she'd chase him off with a fly swatter. So the next day, butt kicking. And so, I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. And I used to ask myself, and in fact, I cried for about a half an hour when I discovered this, doing some work on myself. That I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? And so, a lot of people have these limiting belief systems. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I'm too old. I'm too young. And there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are BS. But you've got to get clear on what you want and create what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. You've got to want it. That's how you push through any of these limiting beliefs and get uncomfortable or push yourself out of analysis paralysis. And, so it starts with those goals. So I hope you'll take me up on the goal setting, even if you don't come to the boot camp. Again, if you're here, you're interested in multifamily, honestly. Oh, by the way, you can come for $97 and I don't sell anything there. It's kind of a duh, seriously. And so, for $97 with nothing being sold for 2 full days of training, and honestly, if you come and you don't absolutely love the event, I'll give you your money back. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything, But see, once you've created that burning desire, there's a few more steps here, and you guys interrupt me anytime you like, but you've got to make a decision. And sometimes that can be the biggest decision of your life. Maybe it's to push forward and passively invest in a deal. Maybe it's to learn the business a little more, maybe do it actively even, but I'm not saying dip your toe in the water. I'm not saying 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, I'm saying you make a decision, it is freaking done. Okay. If you're like an example of a real decision, if you're going to attack the island, you burn your ships down because you're not getting home unless you take their ships. Okay. That's a decision. Okay. And then once you do that, you've got 100% commitment. And when you're committed, you're like a train on a track. Now, if you're just interested, you're going to get knocked off track. And when you're committed, it's no longer a dream. It becomes an outcome. Okay. So commitment is super, super important. And that decision, but then you've got to take that first step. And sometimes that can be the biggest step of your life. And, I remember when I really 10x'd my income, what I did with that third year was I started knocking on doors of people who are in foreclosure. Okay. And I will tell you, those first 20 doors were very, very stressful for me, but I did it and I pushed through. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you see that first step, you take that first step in faith and the next step will be revealed. And sometimes that, like I say, can be the biggest step of your life. And for those of you that are listening or watching that are analytical, I would give you this metaphor. And that is, you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights only seeing 50 feet in front of you. And you'll make it because other people have done it before you. You may have some obstacles, but you're going to make it. And it's the same way with any of your goals. Okay. But you've got to push through. Lao Tzu said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you got to take that step. The thing you don't want is any regrets. And, a lot of people fear failure. I call my failures seminars, okay? Because they're only a failure if you don't get back up or you don't get the lesson. And a lot of people don't know I have actually built 27 businesses in my career. I was blown away when I did the count. Several worth tens of millions of dollars. Most spectacular flaming seminars, okay? We fail our way to success. I'm going to tell you, fear regret, don't fear failure. I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx. I don't know, maybe if you guys have ever encountered this wonderful woman. Her name's Sarah Blakely. And she started with $5,000 and she was in the Forbes billionaire list a few months ago. Beautiful human being anyway. But she told me at a mastermind that we went to that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, what have you failed at this week? And he'd want an answer. And what did you learn from that failure? And I thought, what an incredible question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure. But the next thing I'll mention, and interrupt me anytime, please, is focus.
Well, Rod, I wanted to touch in on that. Well, first of all, the woman that with the Spanx. I know that Tony Robbins is your mentor and a part of his inner circle. And she actually came on and was talking about how she actually went into the stores and put her displays, moved them around in the stores when she was not supposed to help get and promoted her product for just like
one-on-one. Yeah, one-on-one. No, I remember hearing that. Yeah, I heard her say that as well. And I will tell you, Tony, I've been to so many of his events. I've seen people like Steve Wynn and John Paul DeJoria. And John Paul sold his hair products out of the back of his car. And now he's a billionaire 3 or 4 times over. And I forgot Steve Wynn's example. I got to meet Tony Hsieh while he was still alive, the owner of the shoe company, Zappos.
Oh, yeah.
And so many of these people did that literally door to door, knocking on, and just that one-on-one to achieve incredible success. Like I did, knocking on foreclosure doors. And
it's diving into, and you've talked about this before, and I've heard it in other mentorships as well, is like really diving in, like Dean Graciosi does this wonderful getting to the core of your why, not asking why do I want to do this, because the first few answers, I think it's like 7 questions you go down
dig
deeper.
deep. Why do I want that? Then one more time, why do I want that?
You're in tears by the 7th one, and I didn't even think it would happen, but I was like, whoa, now I get, like, what is the driving force?
It's almost always love, honestly. I hate to be a spoiler alert there, but you dig deep like that, it's almost always love. But yeah, Tony does a lot of that as well. In fact, Dean gets that from Tony. They do a lot of stuff together. I spent 20 years following Tony Robbins around the planet. Lots and lots of stories. I try to give him credit whenever I use some of his taglines and stuff. Live with passion and
Yeah.
So he's got some incredible quotes. But so the next thing is focus. And I told you, I mentioned this to you already, and that is, where your focus goes, energy flows. And that's one of Tony. That's a Tonyism right there.
Yep.
And some of the most successful people on the planet have the most incredible focus. And I remember when I had in Denver, I had a couple of frozen yogurt shops. I had vending carts selling ice cream bars downtown. I had a carpet cleaning business, and I had some real estate, and everything suffered because my focus was diluted.
Yep.
And I got rid of everything except the real estate, and I bought 500 houses in that next run. And you'll notice whenever you see me publicly, I also try to minimize my decisions, because you only have so many decisions a day. Otherwise, you're totally fatigued. You'll always see me in these bone ugly black T-shirts, even at my boot camps. And I've literally got about 60 of them. And because I don't want to have to think about what I need to wear for something like this. The only time I don't wear them is when Tiffy says, no, you're not wearing one of those damn black T-shirts. But
she lays out your clothes nicely because she's always so perfectly dressed. What a beautiful.
Oh, I know. She's a fashion statement. I'll mention this. I get excited about my 14 million downloads, and I watch or listen to two podcasts. One is Tim Ferriss, and the other one is Joe Rogan. I try to get both sides of the aisle a little bit there. And Tim Ferriss interviews the best of the best in the world. Okay, interviews the best athletes. NFL, NBA players, Michael Phelps, the swimmer, actors. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, Jamie Foxx, billionaires like Ray Dalio, CEOs of the biggest companies in the world. He had Zuckerberg on recently, and I started to hear a pattern, and it ties into focus. Many of them meditate. What does meditation enhance, right? Focus. And so focus is super important. And we talked about creating that hunger, and that's how you push. Like I said, that's how you push through those limiting beliefs. Like I had, the fear, the comfort, all of those things come from having that burning desire and recognizing that if you're willing to grind for a few years like most people won't, you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And so, the other thing I'll mention, now this is more of a active investor. Yeah, I don't have to get into that. I was just going to talk about playing to your strengths. Okay. Yeah. And that is, if you're in the multifamily business, the beautiful thing about the multifamily business is there are lots of hats you can wear if you're going to be an active operator and do the business. And like these ladies are all doing. And so, you can be the person that locates deals. You can be building in relationships with brokers. You can do investor relations to raise money, which is the passive investing piece, raising money from passive investors. You can, do the underwriting if you're super analytical, love spreadsheets. You can be the process-driven person that helps with the asset management, maybe has some construction background or some property management background or management background in general, do property management. But here's the key. And this, honestly, this applies to anything. You should play to your strengths, period, in any walk of life and whatever you do, because your strengths are your greatest assets, okay? And, don't focus on maximizing weaknesses. Success becomes much faster in any walk of life if you focus on and maximize your strengths. And when you love what you do, like I do, I never work another day in my life. I mean, I freaking love this. I work on Sundays, which is why Tiffy puts up with it, And so, And when you love what you do, you will also be passionate about it. And in any business, particularly, if you're going to start your own business or run a business or do multifamily, you're going to have to influence people. And the way to influence them is to be passionate. People want to be around people that are passionate. And that passion basically equals your ability to influence. And it's really the fuel as well. When you're passionate, you're doing what juices you and inspires you. And honestly, you're in the, what do they call it? The zone, or Jerry Maguire, the Quan, you're loving what you do, and passion minimizes or even eliminates fear. And so I've just got a couple more pieces if you'd like me to continue. One is, the next one is peer group. Okay. And like you guys are in the Incredible Warrior program, and I'm sure you can acknowledge it's extraordinary. And who you hang out with is who you become. And I will tell you, when I was losing everything in 2008 and 2009, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership, which is this high-level mastermind. It was like $120,000 at the time. And I was around people that were thriving in that crash. And they're like, get up, you puss, 50 million schmillion, go make it happen. Now that's who you want to be around when the soup's hitting the fan, right? And so, here's the sad thing. Most people hang out with people that they went to school with or they work with. And sometimes those people, out of their own fears or their own limiting beliefs or their own, fear of failure or feeling less than or feeling left behind or whatever, will hold you back. And sometimes they're family. Okay. And so I'll tell you, carefully choose who you allow to influence you. Love your family, but choose your peers proactively. And because a rising tide lifts all ships. I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy, which is why I formed my multifamily boardroom mastermind. I started that mastermind here at my house with 16 people, about $1 billion in assets, and now there's 16 billion in there. And in fact, we're meeting here in a few weeks, and I want to be around people that want more out of life, that aren't going to be fearful. So, if you're listening to this, get into groups of people that want to do what it is that you want to do, that people that'll hold you accountable and push you. And like a great analogy for this is if you're going to play tennis, do you want to play somebody better than you or worse than you? Right? You know the answer.
Someone better.
So the last couple things I'll talk about, the first one is gratitude. And gratitude is probably the most important emotion that we have available to us in our lives. It's impossible to be fearful and grateful at the same time. Or the Cheever's word for fear is stress. It's impossible to be stressed and grateful at the same time. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. Gratitude makes us stronger when we face adversity. Strengthens our immune system, makes our heart stronger, lowers our blood pressure, brings us closer to our spirituality. And so typically most mornings I will sit in that recliner right there behind me, and you can kind of see the corner of my vision boards there. And I will just do gratitude for just a couple minutes. I'll be grateful for my gorgeous wife, more beautiful on the inside than the outside, my kids, my warriors, my coaching students, my foundation. And I'll just do gratitude. And then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. Yeah. I know I lost a few of sometimes I'll even be grateful. I'll be so grateful over things I don't even have yet. I'll get emotional. And like I said, I'm sure some of you analytical ones are going, oh, for God's sakes, talk about real estate, please. Well, this is how I had 50 million to lose. Okay. So take it or leave it, but it works. Okay. But it starts with gratitude. In fact, I'll show you something in the back of my planner. And I show this at my boot camp, but in the back of this thing, I've got pictures of things that I wanted, but the first pictures are my gratitude pictures. My kids are 30 and 26. And these are my pictures. This picture have been here 22 years. They're all nasty and dirty. I need to clean them, but they're kids, pictures of my kids when they were younger. And so, because this is how you manifest this stuff through gratitude. And then I've got this, the stupid stuff that I wanted behind it, like the watches and the cars and the houses and the stupid crap. But the point is, that's, it starts with gratitude. And then the last thing I'd like to share with you guys is, barring any future questions, is I want to give you a story. So, when I lived in Denver, I always knew I wanted to live on the beach. Okay. I loved the beach and I'd visualize the surf and the sand and the palm trees. And 20 years later, I built this incredible $8 million mansion on the beach here in Sarasota. I owned the beach on one side. I had my boat lifts on the back side. This house is spectacular. Big spiral staircase up through the middle of, a wine cellar, elevator. There was a waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool that was like 12 feet wide. You had to walk through it to get into the pool. Pool was in magazines. On the second floor, I had aquariums custom built around the spiral staircase that cost me almost $200,000. It gives you an idea of the house. Well, 2 months, I worked for this thing for 20 years. Okay. I worked for that's how long it took me to make that happen. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. Pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was to prove the world I was good enough. And I got depressed. And again, I'd worked for this for 20 years, and it was 2 months after I moved in. My family's inside sleeping, and I was depressed looking up at this thing. And I'm like, what the hell? I've just achieved. I mean, I had the Maserati in the garage, 2 Mercedes. I had the boats, the jet skis, the beautiful family. How could I possibly be depressed? Well, this is the message I want to share. There were several things going on. Number one is it's never about the goals. They say the happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat. But you need the goals to create a burning desire, right? You got to have them. Yeah. But it's never about the goals. happiness comes from progress and growth. But see, if you're going to achieve a big goal, you better have other goals lined up behind it. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. I didn't have a vision for the future. And so that was a critical piece. But again, it's never about the goals. It's about progress and growth. But the big thing that was happening was I was totally focused on me. Rod, show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. And that's the year I first went and saw Tony. This is 22 years ago. And I saw that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. And I went home from his boot camp and I called my brother in Denver, who I was visiting for Thanksgiving. I said, hey, bro, let's feed 5 families. And so he went to his church, found 5 families that really needed help. We bought turkeys and, big boxes of food, toys for their kids if they had them. And the third family changed my life. We go up to this door and this woman came out. She saw the stuff on the porch. She started crying. She had 5 kids in this little 1-bedroom shithole. I'm sorry, crappy place. And she was in there with her 5 kids. Kids came out. The 2 older ones started crying. I started crying, and I was hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 22 years, we've fed well over 130,000 children for Christmas and Thanksgiving here in Sarasota, Bradenton. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local children that don't have the basic supplies for. We just did 1,500 babackpacks literally just a month and a half ago. We've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments, officers to keep in their patrol vehicles if they encounter a child that's been a traumatic event. Now, I don't bring this up to brag because there's a big message in this. A lot of people may say, yeah, you had money, so you can do that. Well, I'm going to tell you that you should do it immediately. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement really is a science. If you want to learn multifamily, come to one of my boot camps. I'll give you the blueprint. You just have to go do it. But fulfillment is an art. You've got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals or the environment, or the elderly, and give back right now. Because again, we've been taught to believe that we have to achieve to be happy. Like we shouldn't be happy until we've achieved. But if you're giving back, and this is a play on words, but it's a big one, you're happily achieving. Okay. And so, you don't say, yeah, I'll do it when I have money. Do it right now because the money will come faster. Now you don't do it for that reason, but that's just the way God, the universe, whatever you believe works. It comes back to you 1,000-fold. So I just wanted to leave you with that, to give back and then you're happily achieving and you're fulfilled while you're building, your empire, either passively, actively, whatever.
And if you don't give back now, you keep waiting, I'll get there. It's almost that saying, like, tomorrow never comes. You'll never be able to get to that place where you want to be. And there's a teaching technique that I've learned about over the years. It's called the rocking chair technique, where it says, if you are sitting, reflecting back on your life, what have you achieved? Not in the sense of the material things, but what have you done? How have you impacted? That's
why I got these things on my wall, guys. That's the whole thing right there. That's why I have those cards on my wall. And it's not ego, but when I tell you I get love sometimes upwards of 15 times a day, typically never a day goes by without getting a DM, an email, some gratitude, a card, a gift, whatever. And it's the greatest gift in the world. And when your podcast is really off the rails, kicking butt, you're going to get the same stuff. You're going to get a lot of great feedback and a lot of love from people whose lives you've impacted through doing this for them. So, I salute you guys for doing this.
Well, thank you. I mean, this is an amazing thing. And I think, coming into multifamily is one way that people can, not only can they learn how to invest and take care of themselves and own their future, it creates a sense of peace of mind that they are in control of their future, particularly in the times that we're having right now.
You bet.
But, and with all of that being said, Rod, we have a fun little game we do with Mindset. So Colleen, do you want to set us up for the game?
So at the end of each of our podcasts, we have a couple of quotes of the day on Mindset. Tamara has them, and we'd like you to pick one. She's got 3 of them. If you could pick a number, and then we'd just kind of like to discuss it with you.
Okay. Number one.
Okay. So the quote of number 1 is "Strength is a matter of a made-up mind," by John Beecher.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more powerful than mental strength. And I will tell you, you've heard the adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, when I lost $50 million, it would have been very easy to curl up in a ball and stay underneath a rock. I was under a rock for a month or two, a little eyeball poking out. But
Normal.
that made me so much stronger. I mean, what can hurt me now? Please, I lost
Right.
50 million bucks. Okay, what can hurt me now? Going through a divorce, that was horrific. Worst moment of my life was telling our kids we were getting a divorce. If I can survive that, I can survive anything. And thank God, I met the most incredible creature. You know her. You guys have met her. She's so beautiful on the inside, and I'm blessed to say she's supermodel beautiful on the outside. And so, Rod's a lucky boy. And so, none of this stuff, so strength and I will tell you, let me tell you the one thing that builds strength, and that is massive freaking action. You just go do it. And are you going to get your nose bloodied? Yeah, sure you are. You're going to get knocked back. But, when you've got that burning desire and you want whatever it is that you want for yourself, you'll push through and you just get stronger and stronger as you go. And so, and I see it with warriors all the time. It's that law of the first deal. That first one, it's the scariest, it's the most stressful, and takes the longest. And they're like, oh man, it's been 6 months, it's been 8 months. Then they get one. Next thing I know, they have 5. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? Well, they built strength. They built that courage muscle, right? And they take massive action. And so, and they realize, is that all there was? And they just push forward. And that's a courage and strength thing. So yeah, good quote.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a really good take on that. It's funny. I think how every quote you can think, every person thinks something a little different. Because when I think of like the strength is a matter of a made up mind, that makes me think like, well, you have strength, but the only time you truly have power behind the things you want is when you've actually made up your mind to get it. But back to what you said about goal setting, I believe that a lot of people stumble, get confused, they get all discombobulated when they want only the goal. If it's passive income, they only focus on the passive income. They forget to break down the steps. And the power sometimes of making up your mind on what you want is making up your mind that you're going to take the small steps, one step at a time, because the giant leap can feel hard. But if it takes you 5 small steps to get to that giant leap, you're a lot better off. So I think.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of a made up mind. This is a paperweight on my, let me see. Can you see it? What would you do if you knew you could not fail? What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? Now that's a made up mind. Okay. Yeah. And I will tell you, that is a very powerful attitude to take, because honestly, there is no failure. There are, you're going to have setbacks. If you're not failing and having feedback and setbacks, respectfully, you're not trying. Okay. Let's be honest. You're not. And that's not a life. That's a mediocre existence. And so failure is a part of life, but that's why there's seminars, and every one of those builds your strength, massively builds your strength. So yeah, great quote.
One of the exercises that you did at one of the boot camps, and interesting enough, it was not too long ago, you got us to write a letter to ourselves, and then you mailed it to us with our goals. And I learned a long time ago, one of the most powerful words that you can say to yourself are the words "I am" and whatever follows after that. And that
let me talk about that. Can I talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely.
I'll talk about that. In fact, let me show you on the wall here. You can see, I am the best in the world at what I do. I am success. I am a business genius. Those are not braggadocious things. Those are aspirational things. And I've got signs like that in my exercise room. I am courage. I am health and energy. I am determination. I am focus. Anything you put the words I am in front of is an identity statement. There's no greater force in the human psyche than the need to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. And so, yes, if you come to one of my boot camps, we will do an identity statement as well. It's not just the letter. Actually, the letter is just you writing like a letter to yourself and deeming it really like from your creator. But the identity statement is very, very powerful. And I'll tell you mine. My identity statement is, I, Rod Khleif, am a magnificent, amazing, passionate gift from God. I'm an incredible father, inspiring leader, loving billionaire, and amazing husband that puts smiles on the faces of children, inspires others to excellence, and rocks the world. I've said that thousands of times, and
I feel like I almost remember it. I love it. I love it.
I've said that so many times, and I didn't say it with the passion that I normally do. I didn't want to push you guys back in your chairs. Usually, I'm yelling that out, at the top of my lungs, and I'm yelling out these I am statements as well. I used to run down the street and say, "I am courage. I am determination. I am focus." My kids. My daughter had a health scare, and so she wasn't at the last event. But that's the question they help at the events. They do AV at the events. That's the question they get most often. Does he really do that crap? Does he really run that? Yes, they're like, yeah, he did. Now, luckily, I've got an enclosed exercise room, so nobody hears me but me. But that stuff works, guys. And I know some of you analytical ones are going, "Oh, good God." Well, I'm telling you, if there's an area of your life you want to build on, do an I am statement, throw it on the wall. And cant it with every fiber. It gets into the fiber of your being when you yell it out. So,
or even like affirmations, like my daughter, she's only 3.5 now. For over a year and a half, I've had a picture on her playroom wall, and it's her affirmations. And it says, "I am strong. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am enough. I am loved." And every single day, if we don't do it before she goes to bed, she will literally be like, "Mom, Dad, I didn't do my affirmations."
Oh, that's so good. Oh my God, that's so powerful.
And like,
that is so freaking powerful.
It is. It's amazing. And it just, when you see, like, she started gymnastics recently, and she's sitting there, and I see her like struggling with one thing. And then after she comes off and tells us, and she was like, "Mom, I can do anything. Did you see me do that?" She's literally like repeating the affirmations that we have her say. And it's like one of those moments.
If you are listening and you have kids and you don't do this, shame on you. Okay. Yeah. I wish I'd have known about this when my kids were more impressionable. Because that is so freaking powerful. Yeah. Love it.
And
Crystal.
to be a parent and to see your 3-year-old have true belief in themselves, and you know that they are going to grow up knowing the world is whatever they want it to be. And then, I mean, family, kids, that's everything for me. That's my why.
We just talked about strength. Yeah, we just talked about strength. That's strength. Okay. Yeah. And that is internal strength. That's unshakable strength. I love it.
And you don't have to be 3 to build it. You can start it today with yourself. Have it 2 sentences, 3 sentences before you get the courage to like scream those things. Like, start with 3 things that you want to be tomorrow, and have that your sentences, and wake up and say it. And then slowly your list is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to be easier. And then you'll be on the treadmill screaming it like Rod.
Yep.
It's awesome. If you have even if like you're raising kids and you may have a child that may be, because you're the parent and you ask them to do something, so they're going to do the opposite. Yeah. But you can even add the words if they're refusing to want to do something different, and they're describing themselves in a way that's demeaning to themselves. You can add the words right after it's saying "up until now."
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that stops it.
Love it.
That stops it.
Yep.
You can do that for yourself. Catch yourself when you're saying something, and then realize I just said, I'm limiting myself in that statement up until now.
I tell you, Tiffy catches me sometimes. She's like, what did you just say? I'm like, "Oh, thank you, babe." Throwing my own stuff back at me. Yeah. So
me and Teddy are always like, "Are you being negative right now? Are you?" Right. No, I'm sorry. Right. I was not trying to be negative. Oh man, this conversation.
She's in the kitchen. I know we're not going to come over here because she's all ragged, but it's too bad. All right, pull her in to say hi.
No, I was just saying that unfortunately we're running out of time here. This has been just such a great conversation.
I had to text somebody and tell them I was running late. I didn't want to say anything because this is such a treat for me. But anyway. Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure, ladies. Really proud of what you're doing here, and impressed with what you're doing, and thrilled to be able to help a little.
The first time in the multifamily world that the men are outnumbered.
Love it.
We see it.
That was your boot camp in Orlando. Seriously, it was the first time in our life all of us women were like got to walk in and out of the bathroom, and the men were waiting in a line.
Love it.
It was nice to see this Rose.
And you guys met there. I mean, you had a meal together or something, if I recall. I was really inspired by that. Yeah, I love that. Love it.
So thank you again so much. Not only do we want to thank you a million, Rod, we want to say thank you to you guys, our listeners, for joining us, at our round table. Hope you enjoyed this awesome conversation today.
Can I circle one thing? I'm sorry. Can I just throw out how to contact me again?
Yes, please.
So the boot camp, text Rod to 72345. If you want a ton of free resources, go to rodslinks.com. If you go to Rod's Links, my podcast is there as well. And just a lot of
Awesome
free
goal
resources. And so I just wanted to circle back on that for a quick second. But thanks,
We'll
guys. I
have this in
appreciate you
show
having me
notes
on.
for you.
What's
We'll
that?
have this in show notes. We'll have this in some show notes for you.
Yep. Yep.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes, awesome. Yes. So again, tune in, guys, to our next episode. We're always trying to get more experts in the field to, teach you guys the things that you need to know to invest passively and get yourself in the right mindset to get more, be better, really, truly draw in abundance to your life. So, if you want more, you can always check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, anytime at our website, therealestatewoman.com. So thank you guys so much, Rod. This conversation was great. We're going to have you on again so we can just keep chatting. But thanks a bunch, guys. The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals and do not give investment advice, tax advice, or other professional advice. Please consult a licensed professional before making any financial decisions.